We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip. When it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Arr, fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
You don't get a second spouse at work. You get coworkers. And if you need marriage-level emotional intimacy from someone on your team, something is already broken, either at work or at home. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Northbound Podcast. This is Chris, your host, and today we're talking about the work wife or the work husband. I know some of you, maybe many of you have heard that said. I have heard it so many times throughout my career. This is where someone in the workplace is calling someone else their work husband or work wife. It's not okay. So if you are doing that, I encourage you to stop. And if you hear someone do it, I encourage you to potentially just give them the feedback that, hey, don't say that. And I'm going to give you the reasons why today you should not say that, or someone else in your office should not say it, and maybe the feedback that you could give somebody. There's a better way, okay? So let's first go over why it is so harmful and so toxic and just a horrible thing to do and say, okay? And I'm not going to apologize for saying it's a horrible thing, because it really is. And we're going to go into that. Why this phrase is more harmful than harmless. And right off the bat, the biggest thing here is that it is going to normalize emotional boundary crossing. It's going to normalize that. Marriage language, when you talk about a marriage, when you talk about your wife or your husband, that implies that there is emotional exclusivity. Sorry, I had a hard time saying that word. And intimacy and priority with that person. And so even if you mean this as kind of like a joke or whatever, it still subtly encourages an oversharing of personal struggles, or maybe even marital struggles, which would be even worse. And it brings with it some emotional reliance that should belong outside of work, that should never happen in the workplace. And then there's an issue with loyalty that could potentially conflict with professional objectivity. So a key point from this little part that I'm sharing right now about emotional boundary crossing is that emotional intimacy is still intimacy even without romance. So let's say that best case scenario, you just mean it as a joke and there's no romance going on. It's still intimate. And there's a level of intimacy that does not belong between you and anybody else you work with. It belongs between you and your spouse, or between you and the person that you are dating, potentially. A second point here is that this is going to create exclusion in the workplace. And you could say, well, no, I could balance that. Or I work in a small, or it's a big place, right? So maybe nobody really notices that exclusion, whatever. You can use all the excuses in the world. But bottom line is you run the risk of others feeling shut out, feeling like decisions are made privately, and maybe even feeling like they're not welcome or they're uncomfortable around these two closer work wife, work husband people. And this undermines what we've talked about before on this podcast: psychological safety, collaboration, and trust. And so another point here is that at the end of the day, and really, you know what, this next one should be the top of the list, is that it disrespects your real marriage, your real partnership. I want you to ask yourself a question. Would I be okay explaining work spouse to my actual spouse slowly, honestly, and without minimizing it? Would I be okay explaining the intimate relationship that we have and what we share with each other? If you're not, that's your answer. Titles like husband and wife carry commitment, or at least they should. Commitment, vows, and emotional and relational weight. Don't use them casually at work. It's really destroying and diminishing the meaning of your relationship with your spouse. And it can cause real harm and confusion both at home and at the workplace. And it blurs lines that should never be blurred. Intimacy is reserved for intimate relationships. All right, another point, and this is a big one when it comes to the business that you either represent, lead, or work in. And that is it creates legal, ethical, and HR risk. Even if your intentions are innocent, this language does contribute to perceptions of favoritism. It creates discomfort tied to gender or power dynamics. It can escalate into harassment or hostile workplace claims. And at the end of the day, the organization is not going to evaluate your intent. They're going to evaluate impact. Don't go down that road. So, why do people use this term? Maybe why have you used this term in the past? And what are they actually trying to say? And this is where, it's not always bad. Now, sometimes people have a work wife or work husband and they are very intimate with them, and that is wrong. And if that is you and you're listening today, I encourage you to stop that behavior immediately because that is not okay. But sometimes we are being a little more innocent than what I just called out. And that is that we're kind of goofing around, or what we're saying actually is that I trust that person. I trust them a lot, or we work well together, or we've been through a lot professionally, or we support each other under pressure. And it's that support that's not the problem. It's the framing of it. It's okay that you trust that person. In fact, that's great. And it's okay that you work well together. That's also awesome. And it's awesome that you've been through a lot professionally. That is super cool. Great. When I'm backpacking, I join up with hikers all the time. And trust me, we have been through a lot together. We have climbed over mountains together. We have had to work well together. We have been through a lot, both in weather and in sickness and in injury. Okay. And we support each other under all that pressure. But there's never a time where lines would be blurred intimately. That is not okay. And I would never call somebody on the trail my trail wife or a trail husband. You don't do that, okay? Because that's reserved for the person that you are married to. That's so important. And this podcast is not about marriage counseling, but if you are struggling in that and you're looking to work or something outside to gain that emotional validity that you would like to see in your own marriage, you can still reach out to me. I want you to email me direct, chris@go-northbound.com, because I've got a friend and brother-in-law who does this stuff for a living, and he will get in touch with you, and we can help you with that. That's cool. It won't be me. That's not my expertise. But I want to help you with literally everything because it all relates to being better leaders at work. So, okay, that was a little side trail there. Let's get back to the healthy ways that we can support each other without crossing these lines that we're talking about. So we're going to use, instead of work wife, work husband, we're going to use professional language that honors boundaries. Okay. So one of those would be trusted colleague or key collaborator. I don't really like that one. It sounds kind of dumb, but go-to teammate, right? That's what kind of sounds dumb too. These are ones that I just got off the internet as good things to say. I actually don't use any of these little professional words. I just call people by their name. And I just say whether, if his name is John, I'm like, John is awesome. John does a great job. He will take care of you. He's legit. Whatever you want to say. I don't really call people key collaborators or whatever. It sounds kind of cheesy to me. But these are ways that you could replace it. Personally, I think you just call people by their name and call them out for all the awesome stuff they do. And it's that simple. But you could use mentor or peer, professional ally, stuff like that. So you want to keep the emotional support appropriate. All right. That means that it's professional. And professional support is not you referring to them as your work wife or work husband. It is encouraging someone during a tough project. Like, you're doing a great job. Keep it up. Offering feedback, coaching, problem solving. When there's wins, celebrate them. And celebrate them publicly. Celebrate them together with everybody else. Like, awesome job, and just call it out. All right? Unhealthy support is going to look like you being the primary emotional outlet for them. Or, I have actually seen this. This is horrible, but venting. Like, I'm thinking of several cases where I have seen people vent about their spouses at work, about their personal relationships, or even like told other people in my earshot, just confided in them about how horrible their spouse is. And the thing is, if that's the case, you're talking to the wrong people. You need to talk to a counselor about that so that they can help you get your marriage back to a healthy place so that the lines no longer are blurred. And when you do this unhealthy support, this is going to look like you versus or us versus them or you versus them. You don't want that. You want to maintain a professional workplace. There are no private alliances that impact decisions. There's no inside jokes or side conversations that exclude others. Professional interactions should always pass the public room test. Would this feel appropriate if everyone heard it? And then, man, you got to respect your wife or your husband. You got to respect that relationship that you have with them. And it's not just a home relationship. I say work and home, but it is deeper than that, because that relationship is not just at home with your spouse. In fact, it might be for eternity. So you should always speak about your spouse or partner with respect. Don't use the workplace relationships to replace your emotional needs, and always protect your marriage by keeping clear and visible boundaries. Work is so great, and it can be so meaningful and such a big part of your life, but it should never compete with your home and with your intimate relationship with your spouse. At Northbound, we believe in strong, professional relationships that build or are built on deep trust and real support. And that is without borrowing intimacy from titles that belong in the home. You can care about your coworkers, you can show up for your team, you can build meaningful connections, and you are going to do all that without crossing emotional or relational lines. The trail Northbound is reserved for you and your spouse. And when I say the trail, because I talk about trail with the business too. And so it can get, I'm probably even blurring some of the information I give right there. But that life trail, let's call it the life trail Northbound for you and your spouse. It is reserved for just the two of you. And your work is just a little side detour, okay? And that is not the place for a side jaunt. So stay northbound the right way.
Hey guys, Matt Halleck here, author of The DNA of a Man. If your marriage feels cold, distant, or stuck, no matter how much you try, it may not be because you're just failing at it. It might be because you were trained into the wrong kind of masculinity. The DNA of a Man gives you the kingdom blueprint to become confident, desirable, and rooted in real masculine authority and identity again. Grab it now. Click the link in the description.